Oh, yep. Hey everyone, today I wanted to talk about what has been working well for me when targeting Spanish mackerel over the past season. There's so many different ways to target these guys and it can become a little confusing with what to do and when. So this video will roll through the techniques and timing which have been paying off for me with the hopes of saving you the time of either aimlessly trolling, ploughing the paddock or whatnot, or even just fishing the wrong areas. So for Spanish, the size limit is 75 centimeters and the take limit is 3. However, things could be changing pretty soon on that front with debates at the moment about whether or not this should be reduced to even 1 per person, a no take, or even size limits increased. Spanish pelagic sprinters, they're commonly found around coastal reefs and offshore areas out to about the shelf. Distribution spreads from Western Australia through to Queensland down to New South Wales. They're quite an aggressive, long, narrow silver fish with blue markings along the lateral line. The most common lengths for Spanish are between 50 to 80 centimeters, with the maximum fork length from around 120 to 150 centimeters. They have very sharp teeth. They've got these narrow vertical bars along the sides. They have really only small slimy scales on the flanks of the fish and they've got very thin skin. Some Spanish contain the ciguatera poison, although this is quite rare and it's generally only in the larger species of fish. Ciguatera toxin is essentially like a minuscule organism that attaches itself to algae. The algae or the weed is then consumed by bait fish, which are then eaten by larger predators such as Spaniards. Trolling hard bodies at around 5 or 6 knots is a great way to cover ground when searching for schools of bait and schools of Spanish, particularly when the fish are sitting a little deeper in the water column. There's heaps of different trolling lures that I like to use, such as the Samaki Pacemaker, either 180 double D or D in blue, silver and pink, pilchard red and white. Slimy mackerel, halco, red, white, king brown, gold bombers, crazy deeps, and 180Ds. Rapala X-Rap 20s, 30s and 40s in red or white, purple, black, pilchard, or silver blue mackerel. I attach these only when necessary to a wire, but generally to a 30-pound leader with a loop knot or a uni knot. When trolling dead baits, troll pilchards, yakkers, slimies or garfish, or generally any other liveys you could pick up as well, at around 1 to 2 knots or that walking pace. Pretty much as slow as your motor will go in gear or as fast as you can go with the electric. There's many ways to rig up for dead bait trolling, but you must ensure that the bait's swimming freely in the water and not spinning. So it needs to have sufficient weight to keep it under the surface, and hooks really need to be attached to 28 to 44 pound single strand wire. The 2 main rigs I use include a weighted live bait hook with a treble stinger and a set of 3 or 4 weighted gang hooks with the bait springs up on top. You don't need them though if you can get the bait swimming straight. The stinger rig consists of a 6.0, 7.0, even down to a 4.0 live bait hook with a size 3 or 4 bean sinker. Any 2 to 4 centimeter bean sinker will work, or barrel sinker. So to cut this open with a hacksaw and squash it around the shaft of the hook, connect that up to the wire, add your pink, white, or whatever coloured plastic squid skirt to sit over the top. This will help lock it in nice and straight and tight. Finish things off with a haywire twist and add the stinger. When you're casting metal slug, the lure really can't be skipping across the top. It must be swimming below the surface. So it's essential that after you cast, you let your lure sink down in the water column for around 10 seconds or so. Crack that bailer arm, send it back in at full pace. If they're not hitting the lure straight up, you can add that little micro pause, which will cause the lure to sink down. And generally when that happens too, the fish will pounce. You can do that every 10 winds or so, or intermittently on a time basis. If you're still having no luck, try the slow wind or slow retrieve before switching the size of your metal slug. You can also just switch across to soft plastics or stick bait. I like to use the 25 gram chrome, blue or pink lasers as a starting point, and then move up or down depending on the size of the bait that's in the water. When float lining, it's important to use a rig that's got up to 30 centimeters of 28 to 44 pound single strand wire between the hook and the swivel. This should be tied on with a haywire twist knot. When you live bait, use a size 10 bait jig. This is probably the best type of jig to catch yakkers and slimies. A size 6 if you're generally just targeting slimies. Around the new moon time, you can add a Lumo sinker as an attractant for increased hookups. The same rigs above mentioned that are used for trolling are also used for live bait or live baiting, minus the attached lead. For weighted baits, use a ball sinker above the swivel. The Spanish mackerel turn up over the summer months to feed and breed. They're usually thicker around early March, with the hot bite times generally at first light and 1.5 hours after the high tide. They'll hang around until the start of winter, although they are generally here one day, gone the next. Spaniards like water temperatures over 21 degrees Celsius and water that is deep blue. A strong southerly blow will bring warm water temperatures, and this can really turn on the fishing. You'll probably need to wait until the seas calm down, especially if you were in a boat that's under 5 meters in length. Big Spaniards love big baits such as bonito, small mac tuna, tailor, pike, slimies. If you can catch a live bait, make sure you drop that straight back down. Around the new and full moon phases are peak times for catching Spaniards. Look for high tides between 4 and 8 AM for an ideal combination. Also look for those grey skies too. Overcast skies fish much better than full sun. Spanish mackerel are found along the entire Queensland coast and down into the Port Macquarie region in New South Wales. They prefer the coastal reefs, rocky headlands and bommies. You can find them in larger congregations on the close reefs that are usually no more than 3 kilometres from shore. Spaniards will hold for longer periods of time on the close reefs, as this is where large schools of bait will gather. Search for bait on the sounder, either over reef or a sandy bottom. Bait holding over higher points, drop-offs, pinnacles will yield good results if the fish are around. See some marks below, some jump-off points to get you started. So some tips and things to try when you're targeting Spanish mackerel. Troll down current or zigzag down current for a more aggressive strike. If the lure isn't swimming straight, bend the eyelet in the very same direction to adjust the lure swimming point. For example, if the lure is swimming left, bend the eyelet left. Try a pilchard tree if fishing at anchor. This will contain a maximum of 6 hooks ganged together, connected to an arm's length of 40 or 50 pound fluoro, each facing alternate directions. The whole pilchards will be hooked through their eye and can be sent out the back of the boat, unweighted or weighted with a small ball sinker. The pilchard tree will rise and fall with the swell, imitating a bait ball. Hit the bait boils with 20 to 40 gram slugs and slices, particularly early in the pelagic season, to capture some great trial baits like bonito and mac tuna for the bigger models that will turn up later in the season. When trolling for Spanish mackerel, increase your boat speed from 6 knots up to between 7 and 10, as this can increase the fish's excitement, resulting in a chase and a reaction bite. The lures must be capable of travelling at faster speeds, so RAPALAs or samakis work best. Utilise the weekdays and early mornings to avoid the crowds. Rig your trial baits upside down with the gang hooks in the top of the bait. Micro jig over pinnacles, drop-offs and bait holds when the fishing is slow. So once again, to maximise your chances of catching these fish, find the likely fish holding reefs. Troll deep diving lures in red and white. Slow troll live and dead bait at 1 to 2 knots. Anchor up and continually use burley to attract and hold the fish to your boat. Float line one bait and sink one bait a bit deeper with a sinker to cover various areas in the water column. Use a wire trace to prevent bite-offs only when necessary. Fish in summer to autumn months. Fish when water temperatures are above 25 degrees. Look for angled lines on your sounder. Keep a keen eye out for fish busting on the surface, and always have that spare rod rigged up and ready to go with a metal slug, stick bait or popper. boy. Good Spanish. Look at that one. I'll sort this mess out. Better double. Good start, bro. Spanish. Yeah, good one. Double hook up. Quite well. Double hooks. Spanish. Big Spanish, baby. There he is. And I'm getting the rewards. I was literally on the way back in though too. How good is that guy? That is my reward for determination.